welcome everybody. Happy Alien Day.
Yay! Ooh. All right, get my party drink.
Yes, I got my face hugger eggs on me. We'll be cracking these open a little bit later, seeing what goodies are inside there. Jonathan knows I'm probably going to be making a mess a little bit later, but more on that to come. So yes, today is 4/26. That is the day that we celebrate the first finding of the xenomorph eggs on LV 426 in the original 1979 Alien. And so how are we going to celebrate that? By watching the entry of the franchise that nobody seems to like, Alien Resurrection, including our illustrious leader, which is funny because, Jonathan, whose idea was this?
This was my idea. Well, the reason why it's simple. One, the primary one was you knew I wouldn't pick this one. And then the other one was that, a lot of people go to the first two. The third one's a bit of a downer. And I was like, well, what's something that a lot of people, myself included, probably haven't seen in a little bit? I'm like, it's Alien Resurrection. It's time to revisit.
I am on board. I am fully on board. This is actually the first one that I got to see in movie theaters. So I remember liking it. And I've seen it since, and I liked it since. So I'm looking forward to it. Mr. Anderson, what's your relationship with the much maligned fourth entry?
This is another one of those movies where I have AMC Fear Fest to thank, or just AMC in general, because it felt like it was one of those movies I'd always see on at like 11:30 p.m. or just 1 a.m. just scrolling through the channels back in the day. And so really the only version I've ever seen of this movie is on TV, because I've seen it on TV like, I'll watch 30 minutes of it here or there, and just kind of piece it together. And so it was always just one kind of like Halloween 4 and 5, where I just watched it because it was always on during like an 8-year period. So that's it's my cable love affair with Alien Resurrection.
But you've never seen it start to finish unedited.
Correct.
Awesome.
So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I'm both excited and scared for that.
Then let's change that. Let's why don't we get you through the whole thing all in one sitting. And if you don't like it, then we can we'll shoot the shit together. It'll be fun. So for everyone watching along, if this is your first time watching with us, for these watch parties, alas, because the way Twitch's algorithm works, we can't do have it showing in the video along with us. Twitch would shut that down pretty quickly. So what we typically do is have our viewers, if you're watching along, you can watch along at home. And we'll do like a countdown to say when to press play. One of the things that's a little bit of a bummer with this particular one is that there's not really any free options, at least no legal ones. So I'm renting on Vudu. I believe Jonathan rented on Amazon.
I bought it.
Bought on Amazon, yeah, because you don't do half measures, Jonathan. If you're going to get something, you're going to get it.
Well, no, it was like $1 difference. I'm like, what if I get it again, or what if I watch it again? What if it happens?
Pays for itself automatically. And yeah, some of you might be just watching on if you have it on DVD, or I don't know if they did a Blu-ray for this one.
They did do a Blu-ray.
They did.
It's on the set. Yes, with the special edition.
So yeah, we're going to get this all queued up. I have it up on mine. Fellas, do you have yours good to go?
Good to go.
Derek?
Yep.
All right. So everybody watching along, we're going to do a countdown from 3. It'll be 3, 2, 1, and then play. 3, 2, 1, play.
Okay.
And also for those who, for anybody who comes in later, we've got a counter going on top so that you can follow along or get caught up. I don't know why I'm telling the people who are already here that, but I have no real good way of saying that's why we have that here to the people who aren't here yet. So also interested to hear from the folks in the chat. Have you seen Alien Resurrection before? Is this first time for anybody? What do you think about it? Wicked Kitten 13 says, I enjoy this one. We got a really good take from Good Door Films. Best Alien. I don't know if you're saying that Dan Hedaya is the best Alien or this is the best Alien edition in the franchise. So Good Door Films, if you want to clarify that, I'd be interested to hear.
I think it's the best Alien because he's in it.
Oh, okay. It is funny because I remember seeing this. God, when did this come out? This is
97, right?
1997. So I was
Yeah.
13. I really only knew Dan Hedaya in like kind of silly or like the dad from Clueless and stuff like that. So watching him in this movie, A, be an absolute creep, and B, like his death scene is a little gnarly. So that one kind of like threw 13-year-old me for a loop. So yeah, I'm interested to see what effect that'll have this time around.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was super hyped for this, and this was one of those first, not one of the first movies, but it was one of those movies that had like an interactive, like old school website where like it would like open like a secret door and you'd see like a clone tank of somebody. No spoilers because Derek hasn't seen it, but it's been too long. I'm just kidding. I know. But you see a clone tank of Ripley. Together. Yeah, so they had this like interactive site where they just had like little teases, and I just remember like always checking the site to see if there would be something else. I don't know if anybody remembers that website, but yeah, that was kind of the first place I'd get info about this movie.
Man, that's really early days of the internet. Like I thought I remember early days of the internet, but that was like mid 2000s when like Scott and I would be looking for Phantasm updates.
Yeah.
If you're doing that in 1997, that is the pioneer times for the internet.
It was, but yeah, but they I mean they had a nice site. It was like this where it like opened up and you see the canister and I'm just like, what's happening? Like they brought her back. And so yeah, so I was kind of like hanging on to like every little thing I could get. They'd have like little like wallpapers and like just different like little teases from the film.
Absolutely. And Wicked Kitten says, this was the one that came out when I was a kid, and I guess I have those affections for it. Absolutely. For me, this is the first one I got to see in the movie theater. So this is 13-year-old Bryan, still kind of bummed out from the third Alien. So looking forward to something that like will at least bring Ripley back in some fashion. And so, yeah, I think I do carry some, nostalgia goggles for this. But I would also argue that it is very different for the Alien franchise. The director, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, is actually probably best known, other than this, for doing The City of Lost Children. In fact, Jonathan, you had mentioned that movie was what got him this gig, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, he had kind of this very different and like well-known visual style. And when they were looking for people to take this on, he was near the top of the list. It has a couple other folks to take this on. I think including Peter Jackson, if I'm not mistaken. And I think a lot of people, and this happened like with Star Wars when like George Lucas tried to get people to take on the prequels, and everybody's like, no, I want to do that.
No thanks. Yeah.
And that kind of happened with this. So there were a number of folks who they had approached first, and they just, kind of didn't want to follow those first three films. And, but he did not. So, and he brought his interesting visual style to this, which I think is one of the things that really works well about this movie. Even if you don't like the story, the movie is kind of ahead of its time in that it's very like comic book brought to life. And I think this movie is like really visually stunning.
And if you do, like, if this is your first time watching this and you do enjoy the aesthetics, or if it's not your first time and you enjoy the aesthetics for any reason, if you haven't seen The City of Lost Children, 100% see that. That is an amazing movie. The overlap besides Jean-Pierre Jeunet is Mr. Ron Perlman, because he is in both of these movies as well. I love him in this, by the way. You'll get to see, it's Ron Perlman at his like just that sweet spot of his where he's both really obnoxious, but also kind of like has that heart of gold thing going on underneath. But here we come out with just like the usual, like you've got the that good alien recipe where it's, obviously the xenomorphs are the danger, but like the villains are the authorities. In this case, instead of Weyland-Yutani, you've got the military. It's some differences 200 years later, but it's kind of like, the same monster with a different face. And I like the way they play with that a little bit. It's the military instead of a corporation. The AI is father instead of mother. So just some things that they're showing, like, how much is different versus how much is still the same.
And going off of like Jean's visionary, distinct style in this movie, if you want some kind of interesting behind the scenes stories about the effects work on it, in Heather Wixon's book, Monsters, Makeup, and Effects, Volume 1, there's a chapter with Tom Woodruff Jr. and also another chapter with Alec Gillis, who did the special effects for this movie. And they talk a lot about working with Jean and how like they were really pushing the envelope, and some of those designs that didn't make the movie, but like he really swung for the fences when it came to doing something different. And I think it was kind of polarizing for some diehard Alien fans because it was maybe a little too different at times, but
I can't get the angle right. I'm trying to point at Jonathan, but it's the guy next to me here, him. Ish, yeah.
That go Brady Bunch style here. We're trying to figure out where everyone is on the diagram.
Yeah,
and it's kind of interesting because there's such a tonal shift. So if you imagine like watching these like as they're coming out, like you have the first two that kind of establish like, well, that kind of, well, and they do kind of, tonally, I guess, if you look at Aliens, like it obviously goes in a very different direction, but you have this like high bar that both of them set. And you have these characters that you love in 2. You lose them all in 3 and have this bummer of a movie where it's like, wow, it was a downer, but I still kind of liked it. And then to like a completely different tone here, where they try to go back to the Aliens, way of doing things to a degree, but with a like I said, a little bit more of a comic book tone. And you have to remember too, at this point, Dark Horse Comics was running Aliens comics. So they were establishing that world there. This definitely feels like in line with that world.
Also, whenever I look at this, the kind of the over the top nature, and just kind of how bonkers it is. I feel like I tend to do this every couple of times we do this watch party. But Andrea, I don't know if she's still on, her and Alex West did a Faculty of Horror episode on this entry. And they talked about the idea of like farce, and not like farce necessarily as like, like Benny Hill or like a comedy, but just like something that's very like over the top. And that's kind of what this is. This is like a ramped up Alien movie, like on, I don't know if like, I don't know if on speed is the right way, but like absent. Like there's just like, it's a little bit, even for an Alien movie, it's a little bit weird and surreal. Like the way Brad Dourif acts in this movie, just like his weird, like fetishization of this whole process of the aliens. We'll see him later kind of talking about the beautiful baby that gives birth a little bit later. Spoilers, Derek, I'm sorry. But yeah, this is just a movie with a lot of just like crazy dialogue, crazy angles, wacky zooms. Like it's a very kinetic movie, and if I don't feel like it's very like left of center when it comes to the series overall. So I can definitely see every time we're going to talk about this a lot. I think, people who are used to 1, 2, and 3, and then they see this are probably like, what the fuck was that? But I think there's a few reasons why it works. If you're looking at this, like it happens 200 years later. So it's not any of the characters from the previous one. Yes, it's still, Sigourney Weaver, but you could make the argument that this is a clone. This is not Ellen Ripley anymore. So it's kind of like, even if you don't particularly care for what this is doing, it's far enough removed from the other ones and doesn't really affect any of the other ones. So you can just kind of like snip it, you can ignore it if you want to. It doesn't really impact the canon at all.
Yeah, you and I have talked about that. I always said if I made an Alien movie, like I don't even need to worry about this. It's 200 years down the line. This is off doing its own thing. And so, yeah, so in that way, it's harmless. But But yeah, now I'm just watching. I'm watching the fork.
Yeah, it's such a good scene because it just shows how like Sigourney Weaver, I think, is clearly enjoying being able to do the spicier version of Ellen Ripley.
Yeah.
You know, she had to do this version in 1, 2, and 3. You know, I think by 3, it's that line where she's like, "You've been in my life so long, I can't imagine it without you anymore." You know, so she's just like really weary by the third one. Here, it's a very kind of like different flavor, which I think she has fun with.
Yeah, well, you have to imagine. I always say how like terrible it is and what a bummer it is, like Ripley's journey through the first three movies, because from the point she has the terrible encounter in the first one, she's in cryo. She might be around a little bit, but she has dreams that the aliens popping out of her stomach. She gets sent back to LV-426. She loses her daughter in the director's cut, finds and saves Newt. They're all going to sleep. Hopefully they can lead their happy life. Oh no, we crashed. You got an alien in you for real. And so it's just really, one bad moment to the next. So I do think that she enjoyed the idea of having this alien DNA kind of merged with her clone copy. And originally it wasn't, originally they tossed around, as you probably heard, for Alien 3 and the others, they tossed around different ideas. They didn't know they were going to get Sigourney Weaver back for sure. So there were talks about, for a while, as I understand, about doing it with Newt, where Newt was going to be the character that came back and was cloned, and kind of following her story. They had gone back and forth even on Alien 3, kind of depending on who that cast was going to be. And so it's kind of funny because Sigourney Weaver always comes back. But the original plans were, what if we don't have her?
I kind of always saw it too as at least watching it, the patched together version on TV, but it always gave me the vibe of like a one-shot comic book, like where you just take like an established character and franchise and you're like, well, or like those old like Marvel What If comic books where it's like, well, what if like we went 200 years in the future and we followed like an Ellen Ripley clone. And so it's like, it always seemed like, oh, it's a really cool, like you said, it's so far removed, but it's still, and you can do so many different things then, like you're not so tied down to like killing off beloved characters or like changing the chronology of going immediately after preceding films. So it feels like it gives a little more room creatively to breathe. And you can always just kind of view it as like, well, there's the first three movies, and then there's this movie that does something so different that it's just kind of its own thing. So I kind of always saw it as like a little bit of that, which I kind of view like newer, like some, like even the new Halloween movies. I'm kind of like, well, that's kind of like an interesting what if, kind of scenario. So in that way, Alien Resurrection kind of helped me with sequels.
Also, I think now is a good time to point out that Michael Wincott might be one of the best character actors of all time. He just popped up as the leader of the smuggler mercenary group that's arriving at the military base here, and I just love him in everything he's in, from Top Dollar and The Crow to popping up as a few like side villains in like Disney movies. He was in The Three Musketeers, Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and I was also really happy to see him come back up in Nope just last year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, he's got just such an incredible voice. I mean, his acting's incredible as well, but just such a unique and distinct voice. And this whole crew is really, really good. I mean, the cast is incredible. I think they did the casting really well. Everybody feels like they gel. I mean, there's no like, what do you call it? There's no doubt that this crew of the Betty has like, they've known each other for a while. In some cases, they're annoyed by each other, and they have been for a while.
Yeah, they do. Like, this scene just, I think, establishes that, where like, Ron Perlman's character is messing around. He throws the knife onto to Dom's leg, and then Winona Ryder just breaks the knife. Like, it's just such a good, like, it establishes this relationship in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, in some cases, and it's probably sacrilege, but like maybe they should have leaned in on this, right? You have Sigourney Weaver, so you put her in the movie, but you don't necessarily need her because the cast is so interesting, both the caliber of the acting and the characters that they have in here. I could have followed them for the entire movie and been okay with that.
yeah, they feel very lived in. It's got that ragtag kind of blue collar type group that you saw in the Nostromo and the original Alien. So I think they kind of tap into that a little bit more, where they're just very relatable characters and just kind of caught up in the middle of something horrifying that eventually happens. But yeah, I could totally see there being like you could do like a prequel series on this crew, because it feels like they've definitely been through some stuff before we even see them in that first scene together.
Yeah.
Would be interesting to try and do a prequel series with the crew now and wonder why they all look 30 years older than they did.
If Wet Hot American Summer can do it, then
true.
Alien
Very
Resurrection
true.
can do
it. So I know it's hard to gauge, Jonathan, because obviously like we're talking through a lot of this and it only just started, but like kind of what initial vibe are you getting here?
I think the Jonathan of 10, 15 years ago is a very different Jonathan than the Jonathan now. And so for me, I've gotten to such a point, and I'm good with this problem. Like, movies are magic, and the fact that they got it done, and there's so many good elements on the screen. I think Young didn't know much, didn't really think about like all the hard work people put into it. It's very easy to just crap on a movie when you're younger. And also when you don't interact with people that make those movies. I think one of the things I've been privileged to do is talk to so many filmmakers where their movies were, big hits, or where they weren't enjoyed by critics or audiences. They have the same passion, and that everybody wants their movie to be good. I know that kind of sounds like a cop out, but it really, like, I can watch this and be like, and have a good time, and be like, it looks beautiful. I love the cast. Is it the Alien movie I wanted when I saw it when I was younger? No, but in some cases what you want is not always the best, because then you don't get the surprises, right? Mm-hmm. Like Alien, the sequel to Alien should have just been more people with a single alien on a ship, and you get aliens. Again, even though Alien 3 wasn't what people wanted, like, it's a really, really incredible film. And so what I do like about the franchise is that they continue to surprise and do different things. It's a little frustrating, like especially now with like the Marvel universe side of things, where like everything ties in, everything's cohesive, but that shouldn't be everything. Mm-hmm. So long story short, I'm having a good time with this.
Nice. I mean, I think if nothing else, this movie to me doesn't scream like cynical cash grab.
No, I think, given it's a franchise film, there were a lot of ways, and we've seen a lot of other movies where they can sell out. And like I said, it looks like everybody put their all into this. And like I said, there's a lot of cool stuff.
And if it was a cash grab, it wouldn't be this weird. Like, they wouldn't have taken the weird swings that they're taking. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, there was a way they could have played it a lot more safe, and they definitely did the exact opposite of that. But I appreciate that, though. I mean, it's such a cool sandbox to play in, and there's so many different ways to go with it. So the fact that we get something that's so out there with this movie is pretty cool when you think about it.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting too that like Jean-Pierre Jeunet, like that they gave him kind of like whatever he wanted. Like, there are movies where you can tell that the producers keep, the director and the team like on a real, on a track, and they don't let them veer too far off. But this does feel like Jean-Pierre Jeunet, like his artistic vision, brought to the screen. I'm sure there were some fights back and forth, but this is not through and through a studio picture.
Well, and we were saying before we started recording, because there's actually two different versions of this you can do. There's a theatrical cut and a special edition. Special edition, I think, is about like 10 to 15 minutes longer. But Jonathan, you were saying that the theatrical cut is actually the one Jeunet prefers, right? Yeah.
My understanding is that because they wanted allegedly, because it's really just it's a guess, but they wanted to. It looks like they wanted to bolster the Alien quadrilogy, and so they had alternate cuts of different things. Just because it's an alternate cut doesn't mean it's the director's preference. It is in some cases, because you have like a director's cut of Alien is James Cameron's preferred version, but then they had these different alternate cuts. They had the work print for Alien 3, which is really good. I highly recommend if you haven't seen it. And then they have the special edition for Alien Resurrection. It has an alternate intro with like some kind of weak CG. I guess they just didn't finish it, but also like it's the time it came out.
Yeah.
It has some extended scenes, and then the ending is different. I just if any folks haven't seen it, I won't go into, but the ending's different. And I can talk about that a little later.
Yeah, I feel like when you think 1997, that might be like the dark times of CG. Like there was no good CG coming out. Like that was around the time I remember Escape from LA came out, and it's just like some of those sequences are just like laughable now, and not in a way where it's like, they were doing the best they could with what they had at the time. So yeah, I can definitely see them doing like, let's try the CG thing out, and then seeing the finished product and going like, let's not try this out.
Yeah, but when you see that, and I mean, and you can clearly see the difference. Like the ADI team has the moving eggs here. I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, maybe one day you'll be able to make it seem like that, but you can just see that the actors are reacting to that in front of them, and and that's pretty cool.
I do think that also that scene with the smuggled cargo, the people that they brought in, seeing the eggs is such a great nod to, like, if you're a fan of this, you know what's going on, you know what's about to happen to them. So they don't show it. They just show the egg opening up and just letting everybody who's probably seen these movies before just kind of squirm in their seat knowing what's coming.
Yeah, that's a good call out. And here is the infamous basketball scene.
The scene, yeah.
This could have been the whole movie right here.
God, Ron Perlman is such a good sleazeball. But like he has to walk that fine line between like he's so disgusting here, but like you still have to be willing to like be rooting for him by the end of the movie. And that's somehow he does that.
Yeah, and that's the magic he brings to it.
Also, you just gotta love Sigourney Weaver in this. Just like the absolute, like, the badass calm she has through this whole sequence.
Yeah. Well, because for the first time in this, she's virtually invincible,
Yeah.
And to see how she plays that character differently.
I've definitely also grown to appreciate stories about clones or like android versions of people more, because I like those questions or explorations of identity to be like, what makes us us? So you could make the argument that this is not Ellen Ripley, but does her clone see herself as Ellen Ripley? Does she like I in some scenes you get the sense that like she sees herself as the clone, but then there's that whole sequence where it's like, how did you do this? What did you do 200 years ago? She says, I died. So it's like, I think they're playing a little bit with that notion of identity, and with really good basketball skills.
Swish.
For anyone,
that's the scene where Ron Perlman almost broke character because he was so excited that she made the shot.
Yeah, for anyone who is not familiar, I'm guessing most of the people watching already are. I feel like this is the horror version of the Lord of the Rings thing where everybody talks about how Viggo Mortensen actually broke his toe kicking the helmet.
Yeah.
This is that for us. But for those who don't know, in that scene where she does the behind the head basketball toss, she actually did that. That wasn't like a trick. I think they were actually a little bit bummed because they couldn't get the whole thing. That they didn't get the whole thing in the frame, because you might think that maybe it was like a trick where like she throws it up and someone tossed it down, but she 100% did that. And yeah, apparently Ron Perlman like almost screwed up the take because he just started like almost broke character to like laugh in amazement.
I wonder what the plan was there. Like, if she didn't make the shot, was it just do as many takes as you can until you make it? Or are we just going to CG that in at some point?
I did hear a story about it, which is that she had been trying a number of times, enough where they were just going to cut it, right? So that she would throw it and then have another shot where it goes in, right? So that was going to be the backup. And she had one last chance to do it. And she's like, give me one last try. I can do it. And she did it.
Wow.
And yeah, that's my understanding of the story.
That's
again,
awesome.
going back to Escape from LA, like it's kind of like that whole thing where if anybody's seen that one, there's a sequence where like Snake Plissken literally has to play basketball for his life, and he has to like keep making shots back and forth. And I remember in behind the scenes they were talking about how he actually would practice basketball between takes because he didn't want to use trick photography, so he did all of those himself.
Wow.
Yeah. And I want to say, I'm pretty sure Escape from LA is right around, I think that was also 96, 97. So
yeah,
it's just funny to see like some of the overlap with these movies.
Right around the same time that Event Horizon was described as like the scariest movie since The Exorcist. Yep. I know that was another Jonathan moment back in the 90s was, speaking of space horror, but
yeah.
No basketball in Event Horizon, though.
Thankfully, no basketball.
I wish there was now.
I like this sequence because it instills some level of intelligence with the xenomorph. Like they learn and they like they find a way to outsmart their captivity. Like it's not the most eloquent way or not the most sophisticated way, but they figure it out. So watching them and this kind of really kicks off the weird Brad Dourif fetish of the xenomorph. Yeah. Like he is making out with the glass in front of this thing. It's creepy.
And it's kind of interesting because you can see here, this is a good example of how the alien design and mannerisms have changed over the years. Once like ADI kind of took over, you can see maybe a little more, and probably also this is they had better, equipment, better suits, gave them the ability to move around more. So in Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection, they have a lot more personality. Also, in 3, Giger had redesigned the alien, and they had used pieces of it, but his goal was that the alien would look, would have lips and would have a different body to it. And while it didn't maintain those entire lips, they did change it so that the aliens in both 3 and in Resurrection do have more lip movement and a little more than you saw in the first 2 designs. So it's interesting to see how they use that to allow the alien to emote.
Plus just the fact that they bring them out into the light a little bit more now. Like they're not afraid of the seam showing as much. So you get just kind of those full shots of them now instead of just like little bits and pieces in the shadows.
Yeah, this is and they definitely kind of carried this on. And it's kind of interesting because we talk about this movie kind of being a singular film, but this kind of did set the pace or like the I guess the vibe for the Alien versus Predator movies, because like once this movie was able to take it into like more of a comic book realm, AVP was not that far off. Like AVP in tone is very different from 3, but it's not very different from Resurrection.
I guess it's not too far after this that we get like chronologically. What was that, like 99, 2000?
I think so.
That AVP came out. So yeah, only a few years afterward.
Yeah, because they went back and forth. I mean, there were again, it's kind of interesting to see the movies or the versions that didn't get made. There was talk about continuing this. James Cameron was talking about doing his own Alien 5. I believe he told Fox if they stopped making AVP, he'd make Alien 5. That didn't happen, but what's up?
I'm still mad we never got the follow up to Requiem. I mean, that was a cliffhanger
that was never going to happen.
But no, AVP though, the AVP, I guess it came out in 2004, which it's hard to believe it was actually.
Oh, was it that much later?
Yeah, it was that much later, which does surprise me. But I remember because that was one where it was like, okay, we rented it from Blockbuster. It was like I watched that as many times as I could before we had to return it after like the 2-day window. And that one to me, like I love the comic book vibe of that, but I think it was a little more accessible. Like this is Resurrection is definitely, a little more experimental. It's almost too out there, I think, for some of the mainstream audience coming to it. But as a kid, like watching AVP, I was like, that was everything I wanted in an Alien and Predator movie combined. But now I can like appreciate Resurrection and Alien 3 and going back and watching like those kind of more unique takes on certain things. But I know AVP, it's tough though, because you're dealing with, of course, two beloved franchises, two iconic creatures, and throwing them together. But it is interesting that this was like the last time we kind of had that solo alien movie for quite a while before we kind of went back to a little more of the basics.
Yeah, and we have Wicked Kitten here was saying the people would revolt for another AVP sequel. And I mean, I think we'll get another Alien versus Predator. I mean, what I would argue is that I would just like to see it be taken a little more seriously. Again, like look at Prey. Prey was done really well. And so I think in the right hands, yeah, I would see an AVP movie, but I think instead of it being like Frankenstein versus the Wolfman or Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla, I think it needs to be a little more grounded. People may disagree, but I would love to see a little more grounded take on them.
I think I would also like to see the human element removed from it. Like make it Alien versus Predator. Like we don't have to have humans caught in between. I think it would be interesting to see, like, you know, kind of follow one of like the younger predators, like, you know, maybe the one you see in Prey or something like that, or, you know, do something where it's I know if we do that, we're talking about a movie that has no dialogue in it, but I think that would be interesting.
Or you could do it like, I mean, you could do it like, well, they did the Planet of the Apes movies where it was all, you know, it wasn't like they were signing. So, and Fox did it. So Fox, so we know maybe they'll take some risks, maybe less with Disney owning them now.
It's always interested me too that in the AVP movies, the Predator, I don't know if this is intentional or not, but it always seems like the Predator is positioned as more of the protagonist and the aliens are the antagonists, and they're the ones that are somehow like more evil, even though it's almost like the Predator's coming to the rescue of the humans. So it'd be kind of interesting to see a little more from like the alien perspective, because they always seem to be, they just kind of got a bad rap with those movies as far as like, oh, they're trying to take over the world. And if, you know, because, you know, the Predator comes and saves the day and humans are just kind of in the middle. But it would be interesting to see more of like a xenomorph kind of point of view in some of that stuff.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Derek, because like, you know, the way the predators are like kind of conveyed is they're like the ultimate, like the great white hunter, you know, when you, if you think about that through the lens of like, you know, white, rich asshole, like sport hunters that go to Africa and kill animals just because they want to put their heads on their mantle. Like, I think that would be very interesting to see something where it's like you have that kind of like narcissistic, malevolent need to hunt up against, like, you know, it's almost like a conservation narrative where it's like, you know, the aliens get a bad rap, but they're just kind of animals doing what they do. So something where, yeah, the somehow, I don't know, like now I'm picturing this weird like Bambi thing where like, but how do you do like Bambi's mom dying when these things are born through like a host that they like, I don't know, maybe the queen gets killed and like it only leaves like a few like little baby aliens or baby xenomorphs or something like that.
It's Homeward Bound 3 face huggers.
The Land Before Xenomorph Part 27, because there's like 30 of those movies at this point, right?
That's a great ring to it, actually.
Oh, I have switched back. I'm sorry. It's like I cannot drop these weapons because they're stuck to my hands.
Yeah. No, I love this group so much. I would. I think they did do a good job at, like, you know, yeah, obviously this is a Ripley movie. It's bringing Ripley back, but and we could have spent more time with this group, but they do a pretty good job at kind of establishing this as like the new protagonists, even though they are, like, you know, a little bit, I don't know, Lando-esque in terms of their, like, are they good? Are they bad? But the way they kind of come together, I think you kind of start rooting for them for the most part, which you need to do if there's going to be stakes to actually care if they get killed by these xenomorphs or not. I love this.
They're so
very slimy xenomorphs.
Yeah.
It's so smart and it's so brutal, you know, and it does kind of like, it takes a little bit away. You know, we were talking about like, they're not malicious, but there is that idea of like, we're going to get out of here and we're going to do it at the expense of one of our own. It's pretty messed up. Like it's really smart, but it's still really savage and brutal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, a lot of close-ups, a lot of close-ups in this movie in general, where Sean really like pushes the camera, like very comic book style, right in your face kind of cinematography.
Mm-hmm.
Very slimy, very visceral, steamy.
I think of all the things that freak me out about the aliens, the xenomorphs, it's always going to be that acid blood. That just like that idea that like if you kill them, it is going to do more destruction almost than they could like on their own. It is just such a freaky idea. And they do such a good job at just showing how destructive that is in all of these movies. You get at least like one sequence about seeing what it's doing to a ship, or in Alien, seeing what it does to poor Drake's face. You see a little bit of both here. This is that acid blood is probably one of my favorite / most cringe-inducing elements of the xenomorph.
It's like it can do so many things to you on top of that, but in addition to like impregnating you with its own host and the just the gnashing of teeth and everything, it can also melt your face off.
Yeah, which makes for an interesting game mechanic in the Alien role-playing game, Jonathan, that we play, because it's another thing you need to keep in mind when you're getting into an encounter with these things is if you're too close to them when you kill them, they will splash your ass.
Snap.
That's happened to players. Actually, I think we had some poor NPC. The way the mechanics worked is that like he got like critically injured because of an acid splash, and then the way it panned out was a crotch injury. So basically, it played out that this guy had acid just splash all over his groin.
Ooh. Yeah, it's we had a rough go our last RPG campaign. Complete team kill.
Yeah, total party kill in our last, and this was the last session of probably about like I think we got about, I don't want to say 7 or 8 sessions out of that.
We've been playing
campaign
for months though, because there are just gaps. We played a lot. Yeah.
And it was a not a Pyrrhic victory, because I think they ultimately did what they set out to do, which was to like put a halt to the alien. Basically, they set off a nuke, but they were trying to get off the moon, and they tried to get through an alien nest to get there, and it didn't really work in their favor, unfortunately.
I so wanted to go set off the nuke, message you separately that it had been set off, but tell everybody it had been an hour, but just set it for a minute. I didn't want to mess up the ending.
Jonathan's going rogue.
It's very much like the immersive game, Derek.
Yeah, I was going to say, nothing new there.
Yeah.
Like, trust him at your own peril.
Honestly,
that is so cool, though.
That's one of the fun things about the Alien tabletop is that they really lean into everybody having their own agenda. Figuratively and literally, you get agenda cards with your character where only you know really what the kind of the inner goals of this character are, and those are not always going to be for the good of the whole group. In fact, everybody who's seen any of the Alien movies know that's often not the case. So watching a game where players are willing and ready to just screw each other over for their own ends is fun to see that play out.
Yeah, it was good. And they announced a new campaign today for Alien Day.
Oh, they did.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic!
Is this Free League through Free League?
Yeah, I didn't look into the details. It was called Building Better Worlds, and for anyone who has not had a chance to, play the Alien RPG, I highly recommend it.
Yes, very much so.
It's so cool because you think of like how many different mediums the Alien franchise is in, and we don't necessarily get a movie every year, and for a long time we didn't get any movies, but you can enjoy like the RPG. There's been a ton of video games. There's been like, they've really consistently released a lot of tie-in books, which they bring in really great authors. I know like V. Castro just did one. on Vasquez from Aliens, and Mary Sangiovanni just did an Alien book. So it's like there's a lot of, they really, even though it's not necessarily a new movie every X amount of years, it's like they really keep the franchise fresh or keep giving fans a way to interact with the franchise in different ways. That is pretty impressive when you think about like just how much has come out over the years, and how you can do like survival horror in like Alien Isolation, but then you can do like Aliens Fire Team, which I know you guys have played. So there's just so many ways to interact with xenomorphs, and usually die horribly, but it's still fun.
As we're seeing here, this whole sequence, I remember like the juicy guts splashing against the side of the escape pods always just really skeeved me out.
Yeah, I do like this grenade toss.
Mm-hmm. That's a great like GoPro grenade shot there too.
There's a few little accents, like it, falling in right before the door is about to close. There's just like a few little extra touches.
And then his little salute before he gets a nice little jaw to the back of the head. Wipeout 13 says, I've enjoyed the commentary so far, but I wanted to say how it's a shame that this is the last movie where Jean-Pierre Jeunet worked with Mark Caro. I am not familiar with Mark Caro, so let me look him up. I assume that is probably someone he worked.
Production designer, right?
Production design. Okay, that is a good point. The production design on this is really good. The set design here, it flows like really well. For all the things that don't kind of like mesh in terms of this lining up with the other Alien movies, I do think the set design, everything about this is so Alien. The dark tunnels, it's outer space, but it's not those clean lines outer space. It's very industrial. It's very like working class. In this case, it's very kind of militarized. I do think they do a really good job with this and really establishing like that claustrophobia.
Yeah, we had. I was gonna, because as I pulled up some of my notes. So I mean, we had Nigel Phillips, who was a production designer, and that's what I confused it too. But he did Gotham City for Batman, and he did Mega City 1 for Judge Dredd. So you can kind of see that there.
Oh wow!
With Mark Caro, he had not only been like a co-director or a first unit director, but a concept artist. So I think like both of them, along with Jeunet, are part of bringing this artistic vision to life.
Now, this scene, I remember distinctly seeing this on TV, and this scene surprised me. I did not expect. It's one of those cases of something happening to a character that you don't expect to happen this early in the movie. But it kind of reminds me, there's a parallel here to like what happens with Dallas in the original Alien, where you think like someone who's going to be one of the main characters doesn't really end up that way. So I
taking out the leader right away.
Yeah, this was definitely I don't know if it was a mistake, but it was a sad moment.
It's also like a brutalness to this scene that I remember being like, wow, they really went there with it. And even stuff that they would show on TV where it was just, you really kind of felt this one a little bit more.
And I also think
on how it goes down.
The how it goes down is interesting because like they're right around the corner. Like the people are still there, they're within earshot, but it's still, in the end, it's not enough to keep them safe. Like how easy it is to get isolated when it comes to the xenomorphs. Yeah, that'll do it. And like they come around the corner just as he's dying.
I think it's also one of those things from like a storytelling perspective that like with your leader gone, it's definitely going to cause some problems. Maybe they would have survived this if he had survived.
Yeah.
But now kind of being leaderless, it allows some of them to step up, but it also there's a lot of uncertainty.
And it kind of gives Ripley the chance to kind of fill that void a little bit. And
And
in,
it probably
in
goes
future
back,
scenes.
Yeah, and it probably goes back to what I said is I'm kind of thinking about the story being kind of switched around for Newt. Let's say this was Newt. She probably wasn't as strong of a force in this film. So like the crew and that captain probably were a bigger part of this film. And it would make sense based on what we're kind of getting here.
Very raptor-like, the xenomorph.
Yeah. This is such a morbidly funny scene too. The way she draws him in, or draws the xenomorph in to shoot him through his chest.
Oh, that's wow. Yeah, that's I don't think the captain really expected that his day would end that way. But yeah, they really go there. It's a very gutty scene. I love too, like those close-ups of the xenomorph mouth and like the steam coming off of the teeth. Like they really take advantage of those xenomorph close-ups in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to the set design, I do like how this is. I do like how the corridors are all lit up. I do like how this is somewhat the Nostromo in terms of the aesthetic, but a little grimier, a little different.
Mm-hmm. Which is funny when you consider like the Nostromo like wasn't all that clean. Again, it was kind of like, military industrial grade kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't meant for comfort. And this is just even a little bit funkier,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, speaking of funky, because it's probably going to take me a while to get anywhere close to, because we're got about an hour left. And one of the things that I wanted to do, I don't have much by way of like xenomorph paraphernalia, which is funny considering how much I love these. But this past holiday season, Mr. James actually got me a little xenomorph present. So these are xenomorph eggs, and inside them. And I might turn on my light a little bit more so we can see what we're working with here. Go. They break open. And on the inside is some really gross slime. And if you put these together, you will get a little mini xenomorph. So I am going to try and see how far I can get in assembling this guy between now and the end of the movie. There's 2 of these, so let's see how much I can do with this. But this is gonna be gross because it's like
I'm so excited to see see
early 2000s Nickelodeon slime.
Yeah.
It's so gross. It's so cold. All right, I'm gonna see what I can do.
Kind of like during the Hellraiser, you were doing like vinegar shots. Are you going?
I'm not eating this.
Slime?
No, I will not be. I will not be imbibing any of this. No, I want to make that very clear up front. Yeah. So we got our little tail here first. I think I'm going to just try and get everything out of it. I do feel kind of bad because I'm doing this on my partner's like her workstation area, but I'll clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, it'll be fine. It's not real acid. And I see Wicked Kitten cool. mention that they might be watching the wrong version. And yeah, if you're watching the special edition, you probably got another like 10, 15 minute difference. So that might be why.
That just means you're getting more Alien. You're getting more bang for your buck. So you made a good decision.
Even more Ron Perlman.
And Wipeout mentioned that they're surprised Ripley had the bravery to shoot with the possibility of her companions being splashed with acid blood. And that is true. But she doesn't seem, I could be wrong, but she doesn't seem like she cares about them that much.
Yeah, no, I think that's a deliberate choice to show that this is not Ellen Ripley.
Yeah.
This is a clone that has that like it has that xenomorph DNA where maybe she's not as empathetic as Ripley was.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see if we can get the tail on here. God, it's so goopy.
In the meantime, I'll show off. I have my my Mondo alien tiki.
Oh my gosh! I remember when those first came out, that was like the coolest thing. Yep. Such a great idea.
When you have
it really fits.
You have your face hugger put together. What were you saying, Derek?
It really fits like the tiki style, like the shape of the mug too, like the xenomorph. Like you can really get it all in there.
Yeah, I had to get it.
I don't have a xenomorph class, but I do have a nice little old fashioned I'm nursing over here. So
there you go.
I think there might actually be multiple xenomorphs in each egg too, because I'm seeing different colors. So I think we might have like, there's all kinds of stuff that's going to come out of this.
Kind of like a xenomorph farm that you got going on over there.
Yes, yeah, it's Animal Farm, but with Animal Crossing with xenomorphs.
And we have Breck Fascinated, who said this film could step into what Hellraiser might have done in the old days. And it's kind of interesting because I think
it's in space.
I think Brian, you and I have talked about the comparisons to the Hellraiser franchise, both in terms of like the quality changes and some of the other elements. So he's almost together.
He's coming together. We're getting close to a xenomorph here.
But I do think, especially too, what some of the fan bases have kind of gone through, I do think there are some definitely some similarities with Hellraiser. And it's funny because we really enjoy both franchises. We're gluttons for punishment.
Yeah. I think we might have ourselves a little xenomorph here.
Oh,
he's a little guy. He's a little guy. Yeah. All right. So that's what. There's still so many pieces in here. Like there's so much stuff. I think we have also like.
Is there a little power loader in there?
Not that I can see. I don't know. There's all kinds of stuff that could still be in here though.
Oh, wow, that is impressive slime. That is a nice consistency.
Well, the way it's holding together is really like, yeah.
And if you got that around the holidays, that means
it's been around
a little while.
I will also say these are really good at holding a seal. Like the way it comes together really holds everything together nicely. So nice. This is a well-made product and a good present, Mr. James.
No problem. I'm glad you didn't open it and it was just like a bunch of dust.
Moment of truth.
Yeah.
And I should note that although I don't have xenomorph eggs, I do have Easter eggs here. So that's my prop.
You're on brand.
So,
are you sure there's no facehuggers in there?
I don't know.
You haven't opened them.
Let's see.
And now Ripley realizes that there's a room and that she has
such a messed up scene
on her arm.
I think this is kind of where they bring back her. I don't know. It's weird because, like, on one hand, you could say it's like her empathy, but in a way, it's like she's seeing what they've done to her in so many different ways.
Yeah.
But like the way she's horrified at this, I think, if nothing else, it shows that there's still humanity there.
Yeah. Well, even if you were just a copy, would you want them to take, your copies and kind of torture you throughout all these different iterations and study you? I would want to put an end to this, even if I was the copy.
Yeah. Some really good effects work too on display here from Woodruff and Gillis's team.
Absolutely, yeah.
And also important to note too that Woodruff once again portrays a few of the different alien creatures in this movie as he portrayed the alien in Alien 3. So he definitely, it's amazing that he really went through the grinder. Not only did he help create the look of these creatures, but also portraying them, which really must have been a very physical thing to do in those suits. But yeah, he definitely was pulling double duty there.
Yeah,
which must have been interesting when you're designing suits, knowing you're going to be one of the people to wear them. Like, I'll bet that gave him a different approach in terms of like worrying about the functionality and comfort of it, since he knew he was going to be the one actually putting it on.
Right.
Yeah. No, I definitely think it's cool that, like I said, I think he's done an incredible job. Like I said, bringing a lot of physicality to the role. It's interesting because, like I said, they were involved with Stan Winston and James Cameron. They helped put together, the Alien Queen with black, garbage bags and all that stuff. So, kind of taking it from that to where it is now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and definitely another reminder.
Is that a
Monsters,
second
makeup,
one?
and effects.
Yep.
Oh, whoa!
This one is the pink,
sweet.
the well-known pink xenomorph, which you see quite a bit in the franchise.
I just love too that there's like different, like when you get a toy version of a xenomorph, like just any like a GI Joe or something, where it's just, wait a minute, was this in a thing?
Yeah.
Like, was this in a movie, or did I totally miss that? Like, was this a Saturday morning cartoon that I missed?
There is a pink one in the video games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. There's a pink one in the video game.
In like Aliens Fireteam, or more like the earlier, like Nintendo.
No, the arcade ones that you'd play, like the side scrollers. There's
like the old the Alien versus Predator arcade side scroll. Yeah, that was kind of one of those things where it's like, when you're dealing with a video game like that, you start to get real creative, because at that point, like, you don't have to worry about, you're not fabricating prosthetics or anything like that. It's, whatever your imagination can come up with. Plus it's, you need that gimmick of, if someone's playing that kind of side scroller, you need to be able to throw new things at them to keep them interested.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, NECA made a couple of those figures. I think there is a pink alien.
So it is funny in all of this, like, so we have the two xenomorphs. There are also little face huggers in here.
Oh, yeah. Cute.
Yeah, that's where they came from. You wouldn't have those Xenos without the face huggers.
That would be a good back scratcher too, if you have a little itch you can't quite get to.
It would take a long time to scratch it back.
Like if it's just like a half an inch too far, you can use that as back scratcher. But yeah, this is a really emotional
that's
scene.
Shit. That is an absolute shit back scratcher. But we get two flavors. We get the one that's kind of like jumping out, and then you get the one that's actually hugging a face, cool. If there was one. Yeah. They don't have anything to actually hug, because I don't think they would hug the xenomorphs themselves, but we do have our finished product here.
Oh, nice.
Those are cool.
I'm getting in the way. I feel like my face is like not a good contrast, but yeah.
Wow.
And now kiss. Now the question is, do they fit with the slime if they're like fully assembled? I don't know that they do. That might need to be like they might. Yeah, it does fit. All right.
There you go.
Nice.
Kind of just gives them like a nice, like, they won't rattle around too much in here because they'll kind of be set in the acid.
Well, yeah, if you put
kind of
some
like a little
more
diorama
in there, you can have like a little slimy bed, kind of like in Alien Resurrection.
Let's see how well this comes down.
Done.
We got it right back intact.
Very nice. Yeah. It's like you never opened it.
It is. It's almost like if I opened it, it would be like they were all back disassembled again.
What? Oh my gosh.
Ta-da!
Magic. Oh, I have all kinds of things. I got to put on I forgot I got my Nostromo hat I didn't put on yet.
Oh, nice. Wow. Is that I know you have in the past dressed as
Henry Dean Stanton's character?
Yes, from the original Aliens.
Yeah, so it's from that. I have the rest of the outfit, just not within arm's reach.
No, we have time. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, my friend and Christy's friend Alyssa used to throw an alien party every year. And so
on Alien Day?
Yeah, so we'd always have to dress up. So one year I went as Newt, and I wore a wig because I didn't have long hair. One time I went as Brett. I went as a Covenant crew member because Heather had got me a Covenant hat, which I have a Covenant hat pretty close to, but I'm not going to switch. What else do I have here? I have a little bishop.
Oh, fun!
Oh, no. Oh, he's a little half a bishop. That is adorable. Oh my god, I love that.
I know.
Who makes that?
It was from Think Geek like so many years ago. But yeah, I keep him close at all times. All times.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
On a less adorable note, Leland Orser's character, who we just got introduced to, might be one of the most likable / unlucky alien characters in the entire franchise. Like, this is a guy who literally wakes up with a xenomorph chest burster inside of him, having no idea
what any of this stuff is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that he, of all the different ways that people could handle something as shitty a hand as he got dealt, he is like the fucking hero in this movie. Like what he does a little bit later. It's amazing.
Yeah, he's great. And if I had to go out, I would go out that way.
Mm-hmm. I would like to think I would. I might also decide I don't want to feel this, so I'm just going to let myself outside of an airlock or something.
That's true. Okay, let's see what else I got. My parents have put together a bunch of my old Aliens toys, and so I have them. I have the old Kenner. The old Kenner. It's like a flying alien.
Oh, yeah.
That is so cool. It's like Gotham City Xenomorph.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Old alien queen.
Gargoyle alien.
Yeah. Those are the old send in the Marines commercials, right?
Yeah. I have a snake alien.
Ooh.
Snake alien. Oh, and it still works.
Don't get too close to that thing.
Yeah.
I remember I had one
very reptilian
back in the day, and it had a little a bulb in the back that you could squeeze. It was basically like a little squirt gun. So you would dip the head in water and almost like a turkey baster, draw in the water. Yeah. And then when you're playing with it, you press the bulb and it squirts water at the other toys.
It might be here. I'm still digging. Oh. I have Ripley and her power loader. It still works. Real working power loader.
Now did they do the toy thing where it's because in the movies it's a functional thing that she winds up taking on, it picks things up. Did they do the thing where it's does it now have machine guns and crap on it, or
it has a big gun you put right up top? Yeah. And it's got a gun on the side. Oh, I'm missing one of the guns here, which is sad, but I have the other. So yes, it has guns. Oh, and it does have a missile, which is not here, but it shoots a missile. That's why they gave it the gun on the top. Let's see what else I have.
Just weaponize it.
Yeah. Oh, I have a queen.
That was usually how I'm sure the I don't know.
We have the water scene. Now this scene scared the hell out of me. Coming up here soon.
Yeah.
But what you were saying though about
we got a queen.
What do we have here? Oh, very that tail is very gummy.
It almost fits. It's meant to there's a string here, which I don't want to break, but there's a string, and then you move it. It's probably broken now, but there's a string that so the tail hooks. And this water scene is great. I always try to hold my breath, and then I'm I can never do it.
Yeah, that's the one thing I never buy. That they get through this whole everybody should be dead because they should have drowned.
Yeah, I'm gonna try it. That's what
the magic of movies.
Yeah, we're gonna see how long we can go.
Because I'm thinking I'm not gonna bother. I will. I will hold the fort down while
I'm gonna be the last one.
Okay.
I'm terrible. I cannot hold my breath for anything. I'm gonna be the last one down.
Because I always think about this not just in terms of how long can you hold your breath. They are doing very physically demanding tasks while holding their breath.
Okay. I'm gonna be the last one in. I'm gonna assume. All right. When she goes, I'll hold my breath. I know. I'd be crying too. I'd be I don't think I can do this.
Oh, such a great Jaws xenomorph moment, though.
I believe in you, Jonathan. The other thing I really love about this is the physicality that Sigourney Weaver gives her swimming. She's not swimming like a person. She's kind of doing the kick flip thing. She's almost got you see the way she swims. Yeah. She's not doing as much of the way you would expect someone who's fully human to swim.
Yeah, it's very much her own thing. Just almost learning how to swim as you go. Just moving limbs and just trying to get through it. Oh, Jonathan's holding strong. I
believe in you.
Just another 5 minutes.
That was it. As far as I got.
Well, you made it until they saw the xenomorphs.
Yeah, and then I would have let them eat me. No, I could never do that.
Wipeout 13 tried with you. Wipeout's out. They had to breathe.
No, there's no
I love
way.
this scene. This is the scene that I always seem to see, like when I would be flipping channels. It always seemed to be right before they went into the kitchen underwater, and it always scared the hell out of me because I'm like, that to me is such a relatable fear. Like it's got that kind. They're tapping into something that they hadn't really done with xenomorphs by adding that water element to it, where it's like they are basically the sharks in this scene.
Yeah, especially when you see like this is not a hindrance for them at all. They're able to move like freely. They don't look to be at all having issues with needing air. You know, you're screwed.
Oh, and she was so close.
Yeah. And again,
honestly, she might drown before they get her.
Yeah. But again, they know like when to rein it in. Like they don't turn this into like a gory gag. They let you just like she quietly gets taken back into the water. And then that interesting moment where you see, you know, the Ripley clone just kind of like what's going through her head when she's seeing that. She doesn't look fazed by it. She seems almost like hypnotized. It's you know, they're planting that seed of like how much can we trust her given kind of how much xenomorph is in her at this point.
Mm-hmm.
God, and then they go through all of this just to get like to the alien saran wrap that they can't get through.
Yeah,
that would be so frustrating.
Like seriously, at this point, I've died 3 times. I've drowned.
Yeah,
and from Wipeout, yeah, I agree because they can survive in space. So so water is no problem for them.
That's just a horrible. Like they almost all just died right there. It's in the movie. That's the alternate director's cut. The movie just ends.
Yeah, the special edition is actually like a 45 minutes shorter because they just drown here and then the credits roll.
I do like the trap. The trap I set for him.
Oh.
And I like the idea that, like, you know, they know they can play with this a little bit more in terms of like, because Ripley's not, you know, Ripley and she's kind of super Ripley. You get this sequence where you actually get to watch her get face hugged and she's not, you know, it's not end game for Ripley.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the best equipped to handle that for sure out of that group.
Also love this. The rocket launcher.
Get those awesome like close-up shots of the spinning bullets.
Mm-hmm.
A little callback to earlier in the earlier scene when he uses
with the bullet bounce.
Yeah, the bullet deflections.
I'm looking for this this alien for you, Brian.
Oh, what? You're pretty sure you have the squirt gun alien?
Yeah. Oh, I got it. Yeah, it's right here.
Oh my God, I'm 12 years old again.
Yeah, and it's got the arms on. There we go, so they can grab.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
It's
like
a gorilla alien. Thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because it had like the
fun.
Like the things on its like shoulder blades, like you can Yeah. Yep, that was the exact one that I had. That is amazing. And now I've got my own new toys.
Did you put together? You putting together number 2?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just the same thing as the other one.
Oh, my last thing. What is it? Christy got me this, which is a little Xeno, which has its teeth are closed by zipper, and then when you open it like this, then it's got like a little mouth that comes out.
Oh my!
That's
goodness.
awesome.
And
That's so
for
cool.
some reason, it's a bottle opener. I was like, oh, okay.
Well, that means it's practical.
Yeah,
right.
It's practical. But yeah, I zipped them back up.
It's funny, until I see this scene, I always forget about Winona Ryder's deal in this movie.
Yeah.
Is this something that you have you seen how this pans out, Derek, or is this news to you?
I have seen it, but I totally forgot about her character and the backstory there. So but I remember this scene going up the ladder and the guy on his back and everything, and just like the frantic trying to get up the ladder scene, just really freaking me out. But it's such a cool shot because you can have him shooting off his back. But oh man, this is some real pure nightmare feel here.
Yeah,
it's a good setup,
and it's actually well done. Like it's a kind of sad scene, because it's this poor guy takes one to the face and sacrifices himself for Dom.
And acid spits here, which we don't see, which is not common. Usually they bleed acid, they don't spit it.
Yeah, like I don't even know if it's canon until this movie. Like I think it comes up in like toys and comics and stuff
where you
like
actually
that.
see him spit it.
Yeah.
Because if if it was normal, they would have just done it instead of eating their own kind.
Yeah.
It's kind of like people that can like I don't know what it's called, but like where you like shoot like your taste buds or like water under your tongue. Some people can do that.
Yeah.
Command.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those.
I'm actually someone who I can do it, but it's always unintentional and at the worst possible time. So if you're ever talking to me and you ever wonder why something came out of my face and hit you in the face, I didn't try it. I swear to God.
It's a legitimate fear I have that like one of my taste buds will explode while I'm interviewing somebody. And they'll be like, what do you say? Like, that's just the end of it. Occasionally I think about that.
One amazing moment there where Perlman goes like full Matrix, bends down, and then comes back up and there's a spider. He's just freaked out by that.
See,
oh my goodness.
And like as a 13-year-old watching this, like this always seemed so particularly tragic because I'm like, there had to have been another way. Like this alien is holding on by like one dead claw. Like we couldn't get it off. Also, like he lets himself drop. And I'm just like, they couldn't go down and get him.
Yeah, I think some of this wasn't clear, but from like I can imagine from like a storytelling perspective, like the acid should be eating away at his face.
Yeah, so, I think there's a certain degree to which it's like they can only show so much of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the acid burn should actually be worse than it is. So you have someone that has very limited brain function as they're slowly dying from the acid, and it was I was going to say a no-brainer, but it was a no-brainer.
But yeah, I think if they could have, I think if they did that today, I think they would have had like the ability to really show like, oh no, he's screwed. Like this acid, it's not just like an aesthetic thing. This is killing him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Wipeout mentions, I wonder if the acid spit is not as corrosive as the acid blood. And I thought the same thing. And that is totally another valid possibility, is that it is kind of a more diluted version. We don't know.
Oh man, how is Winona Ryder alive?
Every alien movie has to
it's
have
required.
That Android connection.
It is required. Unless there are predators.
True. It's only a matter of time, though, right?
Yeah.
APP3.
Yeah. Well, you get the real Bishop in the first one.
Oh, true. That is true.
Well, the
Lance
real Wayland,
Henriksen.
right?
Yeah, but I mean the real inspiration for Bishop.
Whoa.
Actually, and if I'm being perfectly honest, I didn't realize until years later with Alien 3 that wasn't, and sorry for any spoilers for this movie that's 30 years old, that the real Wayland in that wasn't even the real Wayland. At the end when Lance Henriksen shows up, because it wasn't until I realized like, oh, you can see in that scene like he's quote unquote bleeding, but like his ear is flapping around and he's very unfazed by it. It's that's
There's two, and I don't remember which is which. I think in the theatrical, he's an android and you see the white, but I think in the work print, it's blood and he's the real Wayland. And now, if I had to put money on it, and somebody correct me, I'm not putting money on it. But I don't. I don't know. I'll give something away if somebody can. If the first person, I'll give a prize pack to the first person who can tell me definitively in the chat. Is it the theatrical where he has the milky liquid, or is it in the work print that he has blood, or is it the other way around? I would bet that he was an android in the original and he was the real Wayland in the work print.
Gotcha.
But I don't remember.
Wicked Kitten with a fun theory as to how Winona Ryder survived. She went into the upside down and hid from the alien there.
Oh, that's why she had those Christmas lights around her neck when she came back.
Yeah. It all comes together.
Oh, it all makes sense now.
The alien Stranger Things shared universe.
Yeah, I don't remember now. It's bugging me. The big difference. Well, there's a couple differences, but the big difference in the work print is that the alien doesn't come out of her chest, so she just drops, and you never know whether they could have saved her or not. And then there's also an extended sequence or another sequence where they try to trap the alien. The work print's better.
I love this shot where you can see the ring light in Winona Ryder's irises.
Yep.
I think it's just like it's a good like symbol of, yes, she's an android, but she's also like, what's the line they use? No human is this humane.
Yeah, she's another really good. Yeah.
And coming off of think of the like Beetlejuice and just the whole era that she was coming off of at this time, like just only a few years removed from really, really breaking out too. So it was it's so cool to see her and Sigourney Weaver in a movie together like this.
Oh no, God. He's like, I got it.
He's trembling. Yeah. I'm okay. I'm okay.
The funny thing though is like,
it's almost like he fought it off. Infection.
Yeah, he fought it off. It's like, in the original one, like it wasn't like he was eating his, his noodles and was like, no, I'm okay. Just a initial shake.
It's just indigestion.
Yeah.
And I think, you're getting into a meta conversation there, a metatextual thing where it's like, because we know that's in him, like they're intentionally playing it slightly differently, where it's gonna be like, okay, is this gonna be the scene? Is this where it happens? Oh, here it comes. Oh, not quite. Even if that doesn't necessarily jive with the way the chest bursters have worked in previous iterations.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I'll say is there is no definitive like rhyme or reason for the timing. And the comics and novels don't seem to have it either. I think the one thing that seems to happen is that cryo doesn't stop them. I don't know. Again, it's the way they're made, but it seems like they go through, like if you go to cryo sleep, they'll still come out. But that's kind of it more in some of the like comics and novels, but I think they just grow when they grow.
Yeah, because I feel like they were real fast and loose with AVP, where it was like they're infected and burst like almost seemingly like over the course of 15 minutes or something like that.
It happens very quickly in AVP.
Yeah, whereas Alien 3, there was a good bit of time. I don't remember how long it was in Alien. I should know it, but it felt like it was.
I feel like it took a little bit of time. Like there was a little bit of
because they were observing there. Yeah, so it was like, excuse me, it felt like it was a day or so.
Mm-hmm. That white android like guts. Ever since Ash, it's like he set the precedent for here's what's inside of an android.
Yeah. I always love the are they androids or are they not talk. There's always talk that Vickers in Prometheus is an android. And I don't know if people have made a compelling argument for it. It's just like, well, yeah, it makes sense. There's a couple of reasons why, and I guess they even hinted that there's an android on board the Prometheus that isn't David.
Yeah, there's a lot to think about with Prometheus. They almost leave you with more questions than answers. They're just a lot of mythology.
They definitely do.
Well, my thing about Prometheus has always been, it's a really good movie. I don't think it's necessarily like, I feel like they shoehorned some of the alien stuff in at the end, which I know they didn't because it was Ridley Scott. I think, well, I forget, did he initially write that as an alien entry, or am I remembering correctly that like he had started writing this thing and then the studio was like, make this an alien movie?
If I'm not mistaken, this had been floating around as an alien script, which was somewhat of a hybrid between like what we get in Prometheus and maybe some of what we get in Covenant, but it was through and through an alien movie. And then when Damon Lindelof came in and when Ridley Scott was definitively going to make it, because I think the script was there before Ridley Scott was definitively on board, then Ridley Scott had this idea of creating this larger mythology and tackling more of the android and like the where'd we come from piece. And then through that, this became less of an alien film and more of a sci-fi epic. And so that's why a lot of that was kind of stripped away. With his feeling, which I've said before, which I disagree with, he feels like the alien isn't scary anymore because we see it out in the open in movies like Alien Resurrection. But I would argue that it's the director, it's the creative team that puts it together. I mean, what he did with the neomorph in that Covenant dropship was terrifying, and it could have been a xenomorph all the same, and it would have been just as scary, that backburster. And so, yeah, I think there's plenty of mileage. I just think it depends on the team that makes it.
I think ultimately the thing for me that like I didn't care for when it comes to Prometheus and then by extension what they did with Covenant is I don't like the idea that the xenomorph was something that we inadvertently bioengineered. Like I like the alien as its own species, something that like, I think it would be very interesting to one day have been able to find out like what does the alien home planet look like. But then I guess, you could make the argument that like the only way to explain a xenomorph is that it's bioengineered, because what's the home planet for a xenomorph like when they don't have hosts to come out of?
Yeah, I think that it had always, I know for the most part, like since the original Alien, the idea was that they were used for terraforming, that they were a biological, if not weapon, device. And they would be used to kind of like terraform planets. I think there was a difference of opinion between Giger, between Ridley Scott, between the writers, in terms of some of those pieces that Ridley Scott just went ahead with, that these were, that the engineers are in a suit being one of them, because I think there was some, in the first one, that doesn't necessarily look like it's the case. So I think that was kind of a big change there from the way that some of the people interpreted it. And then, like I said, and then the idea was that they were dropped on planets.
I do remember seeing something about like before they were known as the engineers, there were always kind of these rumors or discussions about like, people wanting to know more about, what was this thing that was in this cockpit on LV-426. And there were always kind of these whispers in the background about like, the people who were in the know about like whatever the either canon or like headcanon backstory would be for the people who made this movie is like, they might be as bad, if not worse than the xenomorphs. Yeah. So, and I think they kind of do roll with that idea with Prometheus.
Yeah.
And I think that the other question too, was it originally intended as a Cloverfield movie? No.
I don't have a eject Derek from the button.
I'm sure I can fit. I'll crop him out and turn off his microphone.
Yeah, I actually say that, but I guess Zoom does have a button. It doesn't say eject, but and we are missing some things. We saw that basically Ripley has gone over to the alien side. Mm-hmm. That was very controversial. I don't know how many people remember it when it came out, but there was controversy around it. Like, is Ripley having sex with the alien? Like, you can't show that. Like, what is this? Mm-hmm. It makes people feel uncomfortable. So there was some certainly some controversy around those scenes. And my understanding as well is that they those were notes from the studio as well. So so the scenes that we do see are cut down a little bit from maybe what we get in the special edition, or at least what the original plan was.
Oh God! And here we have Leland Orser's big hero scene. This is so well done. Just like the way he acts it, where he's like not even controlling his own body anymore. He's getting shot and just ignoring it. Yeah. Like this is that kind of thing where it's like you wish, you aspire to, like, if you're in this situation and you're going to go down, this is how you hope that you would be able to act in this situation. Mm-hmm. And God, the shot where it's like coming from his stomach out in through the guy's head is just so amazing.
Wow. Oh man, that is
amazing. This is some good CG work. Oh, that'll do it.
That right there is cinema. Wow. That is phenomenal. I don't think I saw the full version of that on TV.
Yeah. And then we have him all cocooned, and they've kind of changed the way that the cocoon looks. Part of that could be because they're doing the genetic experimentation, and so cocooning here is a little different as well. Although in the original, we remember, for anybody who saw the special edition or the director's cut, their cocoons were like full like alien eggs that they were encased in. Like Dallas is like encased up to here in an egg, so it's a little closer to that.
So it's funny, like you had mentioned some of the controversy about people wondering, like, is that, are there like cut scenes or scenes that are on the cutting room floor that more lead you to believe that the whole reason that the queen is able to give birth is because of some kind of like fornication sequence with Ripley? Because the way they have it now, I only ever just saw this as like, these are hive mind creatures and they are like, they bundle together, and that whole thing with her kind of writhing within the hive is just kind of that for me. She's one of the hive again.
Yeah, it's been a little bit since I've looked into this. My understanding was that the director, and I'll look up this after I mention, but the director confirmed to a degree that it was meant to be a sex scene. And that was the implication there.
Freaking French, man.
Yeah, of course. Of course, I will. I'll double check on this right now because I always hate to misquote. But when I had looked this up years ago, that had been the case.
Although, do you blame Jeannot or do you blame the screenwriter Joss Whedon, who, as we all know, was turned into quite the creep, or always was one, and came out that he's kind of a creep. Yeah, I guess that was one thing we haven't really talked about much. This is a Joss Whedon script, and an early one from him.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because he had problems with, I guess, the way that the movie turned out. And then through the press, him and the director had some kind of back and forth, like trading barbs and whatnot. It seems like this movie is definitely further away from the original script. And so I think that I really do think that Jeannot really used this as like the script as like a jumping off point. So it's like he kind of had the setup, but as far as I know, the ending is different. The third act is different. There were other major changes that were made stylistically. Obviously, it's probably very different from what everybody else had in mind before Jeannot got on board. And so, Yeah, it's a lot of people say, and I agree, often, and I just think it's a kind of a phrasing thing. Often will, blame a screenwriter, or kind of like say, oh, the script was bad when you see a movie. I'm not saying this one is, but I'm just saying often that'll be the complaint, but really you might say the story or the dialogue or the acting. But what I always find fascinating is like, look at the original script and look how far or it deviates or how little it deviates. In many cases, though, you'll find, especially with studio movies, that the script has deviated very far from the original plan. And this is one of them.
I mean, that was a really big thing with another fourth entry, Hellraiser Bloodline. If you look at the original script, it is a very, in fact, Peter Atkins recently published the original screenplay from Bloodline, which has some pretty significant differences from the way the theatrical cut wound up. So yeah. To put something on the screenwriter is sometimes a little bit simplistic because of how different it can be by the time it gets released.
Yeah, it's a funny thing because as a screenwriter, if the movie does well, you get the good credit or the bad credit. If they took your wonderful screenplay and they chopped it up and that didn't make it into the final film, you still, get the, what do you call it? Get all the criticism. But then I guess the benefit too is if somebody improves your screenplay and the movie does really well, you get the credit for that too. And that's why they are making some changes, I understand it, to how they're doing credits for writers and movies moving forward. So you may see, especially with studio films, like you may see like 10 writer credits for movies from now on. And it's part of some of the changes to just making sure that some people who worked on the film get credit where it's due.
Wipeout 13. Brains. Yeah, Brad Dourif. Brad Dourif had a not so fun ending.
That really was reminiscent of the Tarman scene, like the whole, even where they bit the head and everything. Yeah. I thought, do you want a party? Like party time was going to kick in there.
And we do have Wicked Kitten says baby aliens are so cute. Yeah, it's a very interesting thing that they're doing with the infant alien. Jonathan, if I remember correctly, this was kind of one of the sticking points for you as someone who didn't really care for this one back in the day.
Yeah, this was kind of, I'm always for me, it's always like you can stumble a lot along the way as long as you stick the landing. There are some movies that like, I'll be like, well, this and this was okay, but like it really ended well. And I think this is one of those movies where, honestly, I really do like a lot of the setup. I like, and we've been talking about the water scene. I like the kind of pulling the head and the chest burster going through it. Like I like the crew. I think there are a lot of really good things here. I think they don't necessarily know how to end it. And I think that probably goes back to what I talked about, is that some of the ideas for the ending and some of the ideas for the characters, that wasn't fully fleshed out, or maybe they didn't follow the script. And that's kind of when you run into problems. I think it's that combined with the design, just in my opinion, even though it's wonderful work, I have to say it because it really is. I'm not saying it to cover myself. I'm saying it because it really is. People worked hard on it. It strayed so far from a lot of the like Giger designs that it was just not something that visually interested me as much. And so that was tough.
I don't know what it is. There's something really disturbing about its little alien boobies that it has. And I think that's the whole, like, they're trying to make it this very like this, mixture of like xenomorph and kind of like corrupted mammalian kind of a thing going. Yeah. But yeah, just I think it's really off-putting. I think it's off-putting in an interesting way. I particularly like the nasal cavity that it has.
Yeah. I like too the eye sockets are so deep that it's almost like, wait a minute, are there eyes in there? Like it almost looks like it doesn't have eyeballs in a way, and it's this very sunken and kind of disturbing in that way.
Well, it's like they took Uncanny Valley to like its furthest extreme, where it's this alien, but it does have like it emotes, and it has like it emotes and it has emotions. Like it's clearly like struggling with things, and it attaches itself to the Ripley clone as its mom. and there's also like, I think they lean into there being something kind of tragic about it, because it's like, it didn't ask to be born.
Right.
And so like, we're going to see how this pans out. Like there's almost like this element of betrayal that comes from it.
Very much kind of like a Frankenstein's monster situation here.
Yeah, and Derek, you might be able to you can confirm or deny this, but my understanding, as I always try to throw the legends as I've heard them, because like I said, I don't talk to the people that make them, but Heather did. My understanding is that this creature was designed with like dual genitals, and that was visually seen on set and shot that way, and Jeannot fought for it, and then it was scrubbed in after the fact, and so the version we see is had some CG enhancements to remove that.
Oh, that head squish!
Yeah, very pulpy. Yeah. You're right. You're definitely right. The neomorph. There's a lot of stuff that after reading, when you read Heather's book, there's a lot of stories about stuff that Jean wanted to do that didn't quite make it into the final cut, but just because there was some stuff with the genitalia that didn't quite make it into the final cut. He really wanted, like, especially with that creature in particular, really wanted to push the envelope, really wanted to like go there with it, but not everything was cleared for the final cut. So there's definitely a lot of effects work that happened that like Woodruff and Gillis and their team worked on that did not see this final version. So definitely, if you want to read some, like, there's a lot of stuff about Alien Resurrection in that book, a lot of behind the scenes stories about what did and did not happen with a lot of the design processes, because it was a very ambitious design that they came up with that I think would be interesting to see. I mean, even the shot here with the legs, like it's so out there. So, but it's even that isn't really the final version that they wanted to achieve, but it's still very different.
Yeah, and I think one of the sad things about this is that if you look at Ripley as a tragic character, and kind of through the like lens of Aliens, like she realizes she's been asleep and like her daughter has passed away. She, as I mentioned, she finds Newt, who then dies in Alien 3. She is someone who wants to be a mother, wants to live a normal life, and continues to lose her children. This just further continues that. Even her clone loses, her child, and that way, it's pretty tragic.
I didn't even consider it that way. Like in that context, like she cannot win. Like this poor, like even dying, she gets brought back just to be put through
a similar situation, basically the same situation.
Yeah. And combining that with the fact that like, the feelings of betrayal and the fact that like her, offspring, or however you want to say it, like has enough ability to emote that it can like feel and show that sense of just like, he's looking at her like, you did this to me. It's so horrible.
It's like the hole in the window too is like, it's just like a blender that it such a painful death scene.
Yeah, and I guess looking back at this movie and now kind of like with new eyes, because I haven't watched this movie in years, I think this really is like really tragic and sad. And I think not that I have again, a filmmaker and creative team can make whatever they want, but it's like so tonally different. There's a fun that's kind of running through this movie. And this is a bummer to me.
Yeah, this is not fun.
And you can see what Ripley's going through here, and so maybe there is an element of that as I kind of think about it, is that like kind of after the three movies, let's just give her a win here. She's a superhero now. Even as a superhero, she's still put through the ringer.
She still loses ultimately. Yeah, to a certain degree.
And so. Yeah, like I said, I really hadn't thought about it, but I think that's definitely something I'll think about a little bit more.
And then this is the other thing that I always like even when I was 13 and I'm watching this, like they wipe out half of the planet. Like if this was an asteroid, this would be an Earth killer. Like the way they show it crashes into the Earth, and there is at least a continent that's just not there anymore.
Yeah. This is where, again, there's a mismatch because they're playing off of things that were in the script, and you have all these threads, and as you cut certain things, are there still some remaining pieces? And this is probably one of them. In the special edition and in the story, they spend more time on Earth itself. I haven't, like I said, seen this in ages. I believe in the theatrical, they don't set foot. I think all you see is this, and it's like, well, there's Earth that we just nuked. But but
it's funny because they say we saved the Earth. It's like, did you though?
Yeah, but
whatever's left of it.
I don't know if Ron Perlman already said it or he says it now, but he alludes to the fact that it's like that he would never go to Earth. Yeah. and but it's worse than that. It's a wasteland. So there's a scene almost like that I think that, what do you call it? That extended scene from Army of Darkness, where it's a wasteland. So when they set foot on here, if I'm not mistaken, and if you're watching the special edition, then you'll see it in a minute. But it's a wasteland was the idea, and I believe the third act was meant to take place on Earth instead of on the ship before they decided to make the movie.
They probably hit the same kind of budgetary concerns that why Jason Takes Manhattan is Jason on a boat. They probably didn't have the budget to be able to take a third act to something a little bit more grand than inside the ship.
Yeah, exactly.
Jason takes the Love Boat.
Yeah, and I think so. I mean, I think the idea was that next film would potentially take place on Earth. And then obviously just never panned out. But it's kind of like that tease they had for Alien 3, where they told you in the teaser that Alien 3 was like, now they're like coming to Earth or whatever. Like, no, they're not. Like, it's a place on Earth at all. There's not even a chance an alien
They never come to Earth. They never
in
come
the
to Earth.
NES game.
Yeah.
Based on the motion picture.
Yeah, and that's it. And if you're still watching, then you're probably watching the special edition.
So I guess with that, I want to start with Derek, since this is your first time seeing it all the way through. What do you think about Alien Resurrection?
I'm pleasantly surprised. Like I think it, even though it might not quite stick the landing, it's a little tonally all over the place. Like there's a lot of ambition across the board in this movie. And I think what it really lives and dies by is the chemistry of the cast and that crew. Like they're just so good together. It kind of reminds me of the crew of like Firefly, and like just a little, just that kind of ragtag kind of group. Like it just really, I don't know. I really love these characters. I kind of, after watching this, like enough of them survive where it really would have been fun to watch like a continuation of this, or even get like a comic book series that would follow, like sequelize this movie. And the effects work, I know it's, a little bit out there. It's a little different than maybe people were expecting, but I think you can't deny that it's like really, really good makeup effects that Woodruff and Gillis and their team put together. So I could definitely see some rewatchability here. So I'm happy overall.
Yeah, and I still land on, for me, it's imperfect, but it's entirely entertaining and really enjoyable. Definitely one I'll keep going back to because it's just, I don't know, it's always been one that it's never been boring to me, and it never made any cardinal sins for me that made me go like, oh, what have you done to this franchise? So yeah, it's messy, it's flawed, but I still quite enjoy it. Nice. And saving the most important one for last, Mr. Jonathan James, after seeing on Alien Day 2023, what would this be? 26 years after it first came out. What do you think after this go around?
I like it better than when I saw it in the theater back then. This is a tough one. It's harmless. There's a lot to like about it, but it's harmless. We said that it takes place 200 years later. Like, it doesn't change, doesn't make me feel any better or worse about other entries in the series. Maybe I'm trying to think about it. It's like, I don't know. I guess thinking about that third act really just kind of is a bit of a buzzkill for me, and that's what really kind of takes away some of the rewatchability for me. But I mean, the work that was put into this, the set design, the crew, the makeup effects, like, it's all awesome. But I don't know, like, to me, this isn't comfort food, I guess, because it doesn't end on necessarily a happy note. Like, some people survive, but did they win? You know? And so for me, like, Alien versus Predator is like, I could just put that on and be like, oh, this is I don't know if this for me would be comfort food. I don't, and that's and like, it's a weird way to kind of rate a movie, but like I said, I learned this from Heather. Like, it's okay for a movie to be fine, and this movie is fine. This movie, and I guess, and that is progress for me. This is like therapy. This movie hasn't always been fine for me, but now it's fine, and I'm happy that people enjoy it. And I know some people have some really good memories of seeing this when they were younger. And I think that's all I got.
I think that's a perfect way to wrap things up. So yeah, everybody, that's Alien Resurrection. Very happy Alien Day to everybody. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope you had a good time. You know, we're going to be back next month. I don't know who will be here, but we will be doing more watch parties.